And as you see this, and it brings up an interest. I want to talk about one other dynamic, and I so appreciate you guys spending the time with this. So we've talked about Israel, Iran, the United States, the sort of fraught relationship between. I want to talk a little bit about the Sunni world within this, and more Saudi Arabia as kind of and maybe even Egypt as kind of more the central. I am confused as to who's proxy in any. Is Israel our proxy? Are we Israel's proxy? Is Saudi Arabia and that world? Because if anybody is going to be pleased, and I know that they have to send out the diplomatic missives stating to the other, but if anybody is pleased in this moment, I would assume it's the Saudi group that is constantly at battle with the Shia world. Really? Now that
this has
ahead.
changed John a bit. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Tell me.
MBS has actually evolved on this thing a bit, and it gets to your thing about risk.
Right.
MBS got spooked a few years ago when the Iranians demonstrated that they could hit Saudi oil fields. And the Emiratis also got spooked when the Iranians demonstrated that they might be able to hit, Abu Dhabi or Dubai. And so what the Saudis did in 2023 is they normalized relations with Iran.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's not because they like them. It's not because MBS has any love for this regime. He doesn't. He loathes them. But if this war goes off the rails, right? If the Iranians feel like we have no choice but to lash out, they could bomb Saudi oil fields. They could just become nihilists and say, you know what, we're going to burn it all down with us, and you're going to get sucked into the quicksand of this war too. And, these guys have a good thing going right now in the Gulf. They don't want to mess with it,
So do they now see Israel as more of a threat to that? Then I always assumed that they saw Iran as more of a threat, Iran and through Iran, Russia as more of a threat to their supremacy in the region, and would rather surreptitiously work with Israel.
That's how it's been.
In your mind, has that flipped?
That's how it's certainly been, but I think it's been evolving. And now, given all that Israel's been doing, I actually think that it's beginning to flip in some, not everywhere in the Gulf, but I think the Saudis are looking at this and thinking, this is just creating a lot of risk, right? There's more risk in what Israel's doing now than in living with the Iranian regime. And secondly, if you look at Gaza, these guys have large populations of younger people that are completely outraged about the massacre of tens of thousands of civilians and children in Gaza. And precisely because they are going to be around for a while, MBS is a young guy, if he's thinking about the risks to his potential rule and legitimacy, the anger over what's going to happen to the Palestinians, particularly if they end up getting ethnically cleansed, and people get in there and find hundreds of thousands of people are killed, and the disorder of what's happening in Iran ultimately begins to pose a bigger threat to him than the Iranian regime. Christian, you report on this. So
I think you're right. And I think that something that solidified the Saudi risk appetite was when Trump did not come to their aid. Do you remember after Iran did hit the Abqaiq, the gas field or whatever it was, the energy target during that time? And they thought, oh my God, who's our ally here? And notably, back in the October missile exchange between Iran and Israel, you had all these countries, including Arab countries, saying that, hey, we are defending, we're helping strike down Iranian missiles. Today, nada, okay? No allies, not the Europeans, not the Arabs. So Israel is on its own with the United States right now, as far as we can gather. And that goes to the heart of what Ben mentioned, and it's about Gaza right now. Israel, which would have wanted, and Saudi, which would have wanted the normalization deal, cannot do it.